recording is started. Thank you very much, Mario. Very good afternoon to everybody. Joining us both in the meeting and also watching on YouTube. This meeting has been recorded and also live streamed on YouTube. This is a licensing subcommittee E-meeting, and I am the Governance Services Officer. And I'm going to, before we begin the formal agenda, I'm going to read out very shortly the protocol for remote meetings. First on the list for the protocols, you will only speak when you're invited to by the subcommittee chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the subcommittee chair. Will everyone please ensure that their mics are muted when they are not speaking, apart from the chair, who does not need to mute their mic at any stage. When speaking, be succinct and do not exceed the allotted time frames highlighted at the start of the hearing and contained within the agenda pack. If you're referring to a specific page or picture in a report, refer to that specific page number or report. If you have any technical difficulties, please use the chat function in Google Meet to raise those IT issues. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the subcommittee. Any persistent disruptive behaviour will result in removal from the meeting. Now, this next point doesn't apply to this meeting. It just refers to if there's more than one application. But for this meeting, we only have one application. So applicants and all other parties will be asked to leave the proceedings once the item is concluded. So once the meeting formally finishes, all the representatives of the applicant and the other persons will be asked to leave the meeting. The meeting will formally conclude, and the recording and also the live stream will cease. Okay, so we will now go to the formal meeting agenda to begin the meeting, and we will begin at item 1 with the electing of a subcommittee chair.
Could I nominate Councillor Bell, please?
Thank you very much, Councillor.
I second that.
And everyone, hope everyone can hear me clearly. We have no apologies for absence. There are 3 of us are present. Any declarations of interest? No. In that case, I will in a second present and what parties are. Our hearing procedure should have been sent to you electronically or in postal form, but it is basically after introduction from licensing, then we'll hear from the applicant to make their case, usually for 5 minutes. Then it's over to any objectors, any responsible authorities if there were any, but in this case there are none. Then it would be for any other persons or objectors to speak. If the objector in this case, who we think is still intending to join us, joins late, she can still participate, can't she, Amanda? The rule about being there for the whole meeting applies to us, the decision makers, not to...
Yes, that's correct, yes.
At that, after all sides presented their case, we'll move into a discussion phase. What possibility of making amendments to the hours or the conditions may be discussed. After that, I'll ask everyone to make closing remarks in the same order. And then after any final clarifications, as Gareth said, you'll be asked to leave us and we'll make our decision. And we will attempt to publish it and email it to people within a week at the very most, sooner if we can. So the parties here at the moment, sitting on the hearing, Councillor Kofu David, Councillor Peter Snell. I want to give a quick wave. So for the applicant, I can see Lisa Sharkey, Vic Ivanovici, sorry if I mispronounced that, and Sam Adder. All 3 of you going to be speaking, or is one of you going to be leading on the speaking? Lisa, you're going to present for the applicant? Okay, that's fine. Our officers include Ms. Nouth and Mr. Sykes, who'll be advising the panel on the decision. And we have a couple of officers sitting in for experience reasons, in both IT and legal. And the licensing service represented by Suba Shiramana. Is that clear to everyone? Who everyone is? And so with that, if Suba, you could please introduce the application.
Thank you, Chair. Licensing Service received an application for a premises license under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 for ARSH 384 Medmore Terrace to authorize the supply of alcohol for consumption of the premises as stated in the agenda. Only other person representations remain. The applicant has submitted additional information which has been circulated. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Sharkey, it's over to you to make the case for the applicant for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Since the application has been submitted, we have amended the application, both in terms of the hours that were applied for and also in terms of the conditions that have been added. We did look at the conditions, and obviously we did pre-consult before we submitted the application, but as a result of the objections, clearly we did make further amendments to the applications, in part to ensure that the residents had comfort as regards the operation of the premises. It is a new style business operation, although perhaps not new to you, and no doubt you've got similar applications or have dealt with similar applications. It is a grocery shopping delivery service. So the premises is a fulfillment centre. Members of the public do not go to the premises to order their shopping. They order their shopping online over a website or via an app. The shopping is then put together for them by staff who work in the fulfillment centre, and there are 13 staff currently working in the fulfillment centre on whether that's a part-time or a full-time basis. And those staff actually pack the orders and they deliver. They actually deliver the shopping. It's not a case that the shopping is then collected by Deliveroo or Uber Eats and then delivered to the customers. The staff that work there and who are trained within the premises actually deliver the shopping. There are about, I've sent you the products list just to give you an idea that it's not focusing on alcohol. Alcohol actually forms quite a small part of the food that you can order online, and there's 2,000 products on that list, and of course if you logged onto the website or you went on the app, the price would be there for you. Your shopping, if you order above £40 worth of shopping, it's free delivery. If you order less than £40, there is a delivery charge of £2.95. As regards who are our competition, I suppose it's the likes of Sainsbury's, Morrison's and Ocado, which they all do deliver to this local area. And it is a locals business in terms of, if you've looked at the website link that I shared with you, the promise is to deliver to customers within 15 minutes. That means we need to identify where they live, which is done by way of the app. And Sam will confirm that usually if your postcode is outside a particular range, you can't order food. You generally need to live within 8 minutes of the fulfillment centre, because once you've placed your order's got to be put together and then we've got to deliver it to you within the 15-minute time slot. So it is very much a business for the local community. It's to service the local community. And I suppose it's convenient shopping insofar as, you know, you can go online and you can order all your food shopping and have it delivered to you, whether that's because you're busy or whether that's because you cannot leave the house. They do have other Wheezies in operation across London, and clearly due to the current pandemic, it's proved particularly popular with regard to a whole range of people, in terms of age, I mean by that, and people who perhaps cannot go out. In terms of their business, they are always near a community because of the distance they are delivering the shopping to. So I've jotted down Battersea and Fulham, which is two of their other operations. And they're not dissimilar in hours, although they have got later hours in their premise license. So Battersea is Sunday to Thursday till midnight, Friday and Saturday till 2 a.m. Fulham is Monday to Wednesday till midnight, Thursday to Saturday until 1 a.m. And of course, they'll only deliver shopping if there's a demand for the shopping to be delivered. I mentioned those two premises because they're both in residential locations. The Fulham premise and the fulfillment centre there has residents living immediately opposite the premises. So they are accustomed to working in a community and being conscious of the needs of local residents. And you will have seen from the website also, I'm looking at the clock, that they deliver their shopping using e-vehicles. So at this premise at the moment, they have got 2 motorised electric scooters, and they have got 3 electric bikes, e-bikes. We've added some conditions to the licence, which you might want to ask some questions about. But one of the conditions, which is at condition 20, I think it's page 6 of the agenda, we talk about after 10 o'clock, it will only be electric vehicle in the event of emergency. We don't actually own any other vehicles other than electric vehicles, but we've phrased it in that way because we know that that is the time that Environmental Health talked to me about and they were particularly conscious of. And we've used the caveat except in an emergency situation in case of breakdown and the other e-vehicles are out already on delivery. We do really think it would be exceptional, and I note the concerns of the residents, and if they that we might abuse that in some way. So if you thought it was appropriate that we keep a log of any breakdowns and that log be available for inspection, we would be happy, more than happy to do that. I did want to share with you, I don't think I've got very long left, just an idea of the sort of amount of orders that they receive and what times they're received and whether alcohol is involved. With regard to typical sales, they have up to noon in the morning, they do about 19% of their sales. Of that, 2% is alcohol, which is being ordered within that order. Between 12 and 5, 26% of their orders, and 6% of that might have alcohol included. Between 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock, 39% of the orders, so that's quite a busy time for them, and 14% of those orders might have alcohol. And then between 10 and midnight was the other time I asked them to look at, and that's 16% of the orders, and 6% would include alcohol. So out of all of those 100% of orders, 28% of people will order alcohol, but that's including the shopping that they're ordering at the same time. I do have some information where alcohol is only ordered on its own, just because of concerns that people might have gone to a pub and then gone home and ordered extra alcohol. And for your information, between 10 o'clock, between 8 and midnight, 2% of the orders, just 2% of the orders are involve alcohol only. So people are not seeing this as an alternate to purchase alcohol on its own. They are seeing it as an opportunity to order their food, shopping, and order their alcohol at the same time. I'm not sure if you've got any further questions for me. I will leave it at there because I'm conscious of the time at this stage.
Thank you very much. My first question was going to be about condition 20 and why you'd chosen the just after 22 100 hours. If I understood from your website, you're aiming to be non-motorized most of the time. But you do.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think the 2200 hours came following a conversation with environmental services, simply because they said after that time that's when the traffic would become quieter. So I offered that time. I'm not sure if Sam would have any comments regarding whether they'd be happy for that time to be reduced down from 10 o'clock if you were mindful of that. I'm going to ask Sam to just do comment on that, please, if I may.
Yeah, sure. So I think there might be some flexibility there. I think certainly from our fleet of delivery vehicles, we would be happy to go earlier than that. I think the only complication is when we're getting stock in. So I think Vic, who helps, I might daisy chain this and ask Vic there actually just on stocking in and whether there was any complications around making that time earlier. And just to be clear on our responsibilities here at the moment for the people on the call, Vic is currently in charge of sort of everyday operations at the site. and I'm in charge of new launches. So that's the responsibility we have in our team.
Hello, everyone. So on my side, yes, we are happy to move the hour to early. Most of our deliveries do happen before 5 p.m. There might be the odd occasion where one of the drivers ends up being late simply due to traffic conditions. So we definitely do not expect any issues with this.
So you could live with it being, say, 9 o'clock rather than 10?
Yes, definitely.
And yes, we would accept, of course, that there might be emergencies where you had to temporarily use some other form of transport. Yeah, that would be problematic. I think that's most really what I had. Otherwise, the conditions seem quite reasonable. So, Councillor Snell, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, the first follows on directly from that. The objectors aren't here today, but clearly they haven't withdrawn their objections, so it's good that we can be seen to be responding to their concerns. I note the offer to maintain a register, a log of breakdowns, and I think we should add that if we are minded to approve this application. And I'm pleased to hear that we're not talking about motor deliveries. Can I just say, going straight on from the comments that Councillor Bell has just made, condition 20, to minimise disturbance, you've said you're quite happy for that to be 9 o'clock in the evening, 2100 hours. But it seems to me that the wording is not necessarily clear, because it's really deliveries from and deliveries to. And certainly, I think the last comments we had from, was it Vic, was talking about the operational thing, is deliveries will be made in motorised vehicles. So I guess that we can probably look to clarify that, to minimise disturbance on a delivery to the premises or from the premises, just to make that explicit. I think we're all understanding that. I don't think that is set out in the condition that we have there at the moment. I mean, when I'm finished, just sort of tell me if you don't agree with that. But I think from what we were saying, we're all on that page anyway. And I guess the bigger thing, sorry, someone's keeping a note, I hope, because I don't want to lose you all in this. But I just want to feel for the operation. I mean, we don't really get that because you're applying for an alcohol license here. You can trade anyway as a business. How long have you been operating? Have you checked that your operation is consistent with the current planning designation of the site? And in effect, for food, for non-alcohol, is it a 24-hour operation, or does it operate from these same hours that we were talking about, which I think was about 7 o'clock till midnight? What are the current hours of operation of the premises for goods other than alcohol?
Can I first of all respond to the condition as regards your questions as regards condition 20? Condition 20 was phrased in a way that related to the use of delivery vehicles from the premises. So it was talking about the types of vehicles that the drivers employed at the premises would be using. It wasn't really to capture, and I know Vic mentioned that, it wasn't really to capture deliveries vehicles to the premises. All that I can say to you on that is that those deliveries do take place in the daytime, but I did not want to guarantee that they would purely be electric vehicles, because they are coming out from our stockists to us, and we don't have control over that, but we do have control over the vehicles that we use. So the deliveries to the premises of the food and the fresh products will happen during the daytime, but the deliveries by staff will be on the motorised vehicle. So I wouldn't want that condition to be amended to say deliveries to and from the premises. It's been worded specifically to relate to the vehicles used by the premises. With regard to the planning permission, we are operating in accordance with the planning permission. We have got the right usage for the premises, and there are no restrictions on hours and use in that way. How long have we been operating? I'm going to ask Sam to answer that question. I know at the moment, and do we operate 24 hours? I don't think any of the fulfillment centres operate 24 hours. And I know that this particular one at the moment, because it has started trading, today is its 25th day of trading, but obviously without alcohol sales. And we're currently trading until midnight from this particular fulfillment centre. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to mute myself and hand over to Sam.
So to be clear, I think Lisa, you gave the answer. I think the question on how long London Field, this depot has been operating for, which I think it was the 23rd of January was the date it launched. Can I just confirm as to whether the question was around that operations or whether it was Wheezy in general?
Specific to that operation, but it would raise concern for me if there was the potential for longer hours. I think it's a reasonable expectation of neighbours that you don't operate after midnight, but I can come back to that later in the discussion. But yes, I was specifically asking about London Fields. I mean, you've already said that some of your other operations run through till 2 in the morning, I think. So we know that some of them operate longer.
Vic, go ahead.
I just want to clarify the opening hours. All of the other premises, we have a extended alcohol license in terms of hours. So in case we need to extend our business hours, in case there is demand for our services, we can do so. However, that does not mean that we keep the premises open till 2. All of our premises are now open the latest till 12 midnight. Our business model would not allow us to operate 24/7 because we have to have breaks between the shifts in order to restock and manage the stock within the fulfillment centers. Indeed, we are now testing opening hours till midnight since beginning of last week, including in the Mentmore Terrace premises. But we're considering more as a test rather than implementing full-time. Before last week, our latest opening hours were till 11 p.m. Now we've extended them till 12 to see if demand is there. And we'll make a decision accordingly.
But what about deliveries to the premises? What hours do they take place within?
Deliveries to the premises usually happen before evening. Just like it would for any of our competitors, like even in more decent times than our competitors. I would say our latest delivery should be around 6 p.m. Obviously, depending on traffic.
And your earliest?
And the earliest at the moment, it's between 6 and 7 a.m. The earliest.
So residents shouldn't be disturbed before 6 and after what time? Say 7 or 8?
I think 8 is safe to say.
Okay, we could consider conditioning that. Or if it would damage your business model so much you wouldn't like it as a condition, please do say.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
At the moment, we rely on external suppliers in order to receive our orders, and we are literally at their mercy. If they would one day tell us that they have to deliver at 5 a.m., in order to continue operating our business, we would need to comply with their delivery, especially if they have their own products. If Wheezy turns out to be, if they have products that we sell most, if Wheezy develops as a business and we're able to arrange our supply chain at any point, then we will have more control. But at the moment, it's not something that we can guarantee working with third-party suppliers.
Lisa?
Thank you. Can I say it's my first time doing this online, so thank you for being patient with me. What I would say with regard to the delivery times, we wouldn't particularly want a condition regarding the times that the goods were delivered, simply for the reason that Vic has mentioned. Well, what I will say is that at the other fulfillment centres that I've mentioned, where we have the deliveries, the same people are delivering there, and then they're coming on and to different fulfillment centres. We haven't had one resident complaint since the premises have been operating. So we feel pretty assured that we will not be getting a complaint here as regards the way it will operate with the deliveries, because we've not got, and as well with regard to the waste, let me comment on this. It's not a food business, so we don't have a lot of waste from the premises. So there's not a lot of comings and goings in those respects, and the waste from the premises only needed to be collected once a week because it's cardboard and plastic, and that's it. No food waste whatsoever.
But it is a particular issue raised by the objectors.
I think the concern with regard to the objectors, if I'm correct, Councillor Bell, was with regard to the location of the deliveries. There was some residents concerned that the deliveries would be to the rear of the premises. There was some concern that they would be to the front of the premises. We have said that they will be to the front of the premises because that's where the roller shutter is. So that's where the business has been constructed to receive its deliveries. I'm not sure if Sam wants to comment further and just ask if the deliveries are conditionalised, and maybe if it's phrased in a way of except in the event of an emergency. I don't know if that would be allowed, committee. I'm just going to ask Sam, if you don't mind, for him to just comment further.
Well, the residents have specifically said they want deliveries only during acceptable times of the day and never at night time or early in the morning. Yeah. And yes, that is based upon worries about it being delivered on the other side of the premises.
Mm.
But it will also disturb people on the Mentmore Terrace side. There are some residential properties in Mentmore Terrace, even if not majorly adjacent to the premises.
Okay. Sam, Councillor Bell, would you let Sam comment?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think I echo Vic's point. I think it would certainly, there would be a risk that in the future if for business continuity, but I think if it was necessary and sort of necessary for granting a license, then I think we could put some restriction there, as long as we had some exception for emergencies or for sort of specific situations outside our control.
I don't think we'd object to emergencies. It's simply giving the residents more reassurance that you will not be doing it on a regular basis. Councillor Snell, were you indicating? Or?
Sorry, no. I think the point is that, but I'll say now I'm in, the offer that we had previously for the maintenance of a log for emergencies, I think gives some reassurance and to both parties that there will be a way of handling that, and residents wouldn't be too badly affected.
The other issue in terms of our own policies is that we have a general presumption that off sales will end at 11 p.m. and you're asking us to waive that to midnight. You need to make a specific case for that. Did everyone understand? We have a specific policy. Off sales normally stop at 11 p.m. Why should we waive that in your case? Lisa?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, if I can just respond to that. I'm obviously mindful of your policy, and I'm also mindful that at paragraph 2.16, we are there is flexibility in terms of hours, and an applicant and the application will be considered on its merits. We were mindful, though, of your hours of 11 p.m. What I would say, though, with regard to the setting of those hours at LP4, you set out in the preceding paragraphs the areas of concern with regard to off sales, and you start at paragraph 2.21. And it talks about negative impact on the promotion of the licensing objectives. It talks about such as street drinking and preloading. And obviously at paragraph 2.23, you talk about high number of convenience stores and supermarkets that are licensed to sell alcohol to early hours of the morning. What I would say about this type of application is it's quite a unique business model. It's not an off license. It's not a shop inviting people to come along and shop within the store. It's a fulfillment centre where members of the public won't be going to the premises. The shopping is being delivered to people at their home or at their place of work. We have offered conditions in the application which specify that alcohol will not be delivered to a public place. It will be delivered to somebody's home or place of work, which I would say addresses the issue with regard to street drinking. As regards preloading, the numbers that I quoted within the application, where the number of orders that included alcohol sales and those that were purely alcohol sales are particularly low. People are not seeing this business as somewhere where they can purchase alcohol from in volume. If they did want to purchase it in volume, there are other places that they could purchase it from, perhaps outside the hours we are applying for. It's not unusual for people to want their shopping delivered at midnight. And remember, it's being delivered to their home. People's hours of work are different. And from the current retailers who deliver to the local area, I know that Ocado deliver until midnight. I think it's all about people's work patterns and what time they finish work. Some people don't finish work till a little later, and they want their food shopping, and they don't necessarily want to stop and pick it up on their way home. They'd rather it be there waiting for them and they take it from the driver as they get home. So that's why I'm going to ask you to grant it as an exception until midnight, because I don't think that we offend the areas of concern identified in your policy. And I think some of the conditions that we've offered are specifically trying to address that. And as I said, it is very much a business for local people who live within 8 minutes, and it's really to support their needs and their desires. If people don't want their shopping at midnight, they just won't order it.
Okay, I hear the argument, but just to caution you, when we grant a license, we have to always bear in mind that we grant it to an operator who's applied at the time. Once the business is sold on, the license stays there. So we have to always be concerned that a less responsible operator could buy the premises from you and could use it in a different way. So we have to bear that in mind. But I've heard a concise argument as to why we should possibly make an exception in this case. Councillor David, you got any questions you wanted to ask?
No, I think the point which I was looking to make was already clarified, which is in terms of late deliveries. I know I get Ocado's about 11:30 as well, so yeah, I can understand for local businesses. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Snell, anything else you want to raise?
We've not really gone into a discussion phase, but I think in my questions I've sort of raised where I'm coming from. Obviously, we will collectively retire and make an overall decision. I suppose just to throw in before the summing up, I think largely the points raised by neighbours are addressed by what the applicants proposed and the additional items proposed tonight. I do feel, and obviously this will be streamed and the local residents can check what we say afterwards, I do think the area of concern that has emerged is about delivery in the morning, and I think it's possible, even in those circumstances, to say, well, in exceptional circumstances with a log, we could actually restrict really early morning deliveries because they'd have a let out that would be sufficient for their business, and it would offer some reassurance to the neighbours. Now, I'm just throwing that into the mix now because when the applicants come to their summing up, if they want to challenge that view, then please do so, because that's what I'll be arguing when we go into private session.
Thank you, that's very helpful. So I should have clarified, we are now in the discussion phase, so any party can speak. So obviously, Councillor Snell, were you particularly thinking about deliveries to the premises? Yes?
I think, yes, we should be putting some sort of limit on that, but with the get out of exceptionality. As long as we're keeping a log of exceptionality, then I think it's perfectly reasonable to allow the occasional delivery at 5 in the morning, but it would need to be logged so we could check it. You know, nobody was taking the mickey. That's really where I'm coming from, because I don't think we've picked that up in the various comments from officers and what we have said previously on this application.
So, to Wheezy, if we were conditioning that from 6 to either 6 or to 8, could you live with that condition? Deliveries to the premises that we're talking about.
So I think we could. But can I just confirm with you on those hours? So I think in principle, I think we're okay with the constraints. And because does that work on hours? Yeah, Councillor, I think that works.
So clearly, I think we understand that occasionally exceptions will have to be made. I don't have a problem with that, providing it is truly exceptional. Vic?
Yes, from our side, we are happy in operations to keep a log in terms of very early deliveries, get an understanding of where they're coming in exactly, and
See if you can
try to prevent them, generally speaking, from coming earlier before that hour. It would also be interesting for us to understand, using that log, exactly the occurrence of very early deliveries. So yes, it's something we are willing to accept.
Councillor David?
Yes, I was just wondering if there is a need or there is an intention to perhaps have timely meetings with local residents to see, you know, how things are going, maybe for the first few months or something. I don't know what the position is.
So sometimes what we attach to a license is a condition that you offer a meeting with local residents at a certain interval to allow them to turn up and make any representations about any nuisance they allege you're causing to them. These meetings often happen intensely at first and then they peter out. If our operation has been run well, but it's something we sometimes put on license. Lisa?
Thank you. I don't think that would be an area of concern for us. One of the residents has already called us to introduce himself, so we wouldn't have a problem with that. If they chose that they didn't want the meetings, as long as we organise them, I suppose that's absolutely fine. And thank you. And we put a condition in there to provide telephone numbers as well, and we have already got the phone numbers ready for them, both a mobile number and a landline number. But the resident who called us tracked in there to provide telephone numbers as well, and we have already got the phone numbers ready for them, both a mobile number and a landline number. But the resident who called us tracked us down anyway through the Fulham store, so we know that they will get to us. So, but we're more than happy with that.
Okay, as I said, it's sometimes a useful condition, and it often helps it at first, but then it settles down, and people aren't demanding anymore. Amanda, do you want to make a point?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask what efforts they'd made prior to this application being heard to overcome the objections with the local residents. I don't know what they'd done. And also, could they just clarify also when the premises, this particular site started? I think, was it in July of 2020 or was it later? I'm not sure, because I'm not sure if this is a fairly new site, I suppose, for your chain.
I thought I heard a launch date of 23rd of January.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Do you want to, Lisa, say anything about the attempts you made to contact the objectors?
Yes, through the licensing team, I did write to the objectors to set out the revised hours and the revised conditions that we were proposing to offer. Of course, we did also speak to one of the gentlemen who'd objected to the application, and Vic spoke to him direct. So we did make those attempts specifically as regards the conditions and the amendments, and some reassurances as well.
Okay, I think I have all the information I need. Any points from Councillor Snell? Goes David, anything else? Amanda, is there anything you think we should have asked that we haven't?
No,
Okay.
I think you've covered everything.
Lisa, do you want to sum up on behalf of the applicant? Do you want to sum up?
Yes, sorry, I'd done something with my screen and I couldn't get to the microphone then. Thank you very much. Just really, I suppose it's very quick from me. As regards the deliveries, as regards the times stock is brought in, we've obviously indicated that we're happy to agree to that condition, with the exception on logs. The early morning deliveries are really the fresh products like bread, fruit, vegetables, things of that nature. As regards delivery drivers, as they go and dispatch the goods to people, again, we're happy if that's 9 p.m. and again to log the occasions where electric vehicle can't be used for some reason. And I suppose the thing to emphasise is that it is an application for local people who live in the local area, and we're servicing a need for them to have their shopping delivered at home. We've asked for midnight. I think you are entitled to grant as an exception to your hours policy. It is within your power to consider the application. This is not a premise that's selling alcohol to people coming in off the street. It's going to be delivered to their home or their place of work. And I suppose that, you know, the problem as regards street drinking and preloading, I would say, don't apply within relation to this particular application. So I think you have got the power to grant, and as I've already indicated, there's existing suppliers who are delivering to the local area, people shopping beyond 11 o'clock at the moment. Thank you. That's it from me.
Councillor Bell, sorry, could I come in here? Amanda will tell me if I'm out of order. But I know in reaching our decision, it's always important to put issues, things that concern us, before the applicant so they can mention it. And the only thing that I feel I haven't actually covered properly, tell me, Amanda, if I'm not allowed to do this, but the only thing I don't feel I'm a bit worried about is I know those arches, we all know those arches. They were there for long-standing industrial uses. They're like any other old, and they're now becoming a bit more trendy, any other old railway arches. What I slightly worry about is you said you're compliant with the planning permission, but normally planning permission for this type of operation, I would have thought, had something in the way of operating hours. So this is not a planning committee, so we clearly can't take that into account. But we might, I'd quite like just to put a little informative at the end saying, we'll leave it to you just to go back to planning and check that there is no requirement for you to agree with these hours with them. Please object now, because otherwise I'll be told by Amanda I'm not allowed to put that on our decision if we decide to grant it.
I think Councillor Snell's suggesting the pretty standard informative we use, which simply requires that you have a planning permission which is relevant for all elements, including the hours. And if you're telling us already you have that in place, you think, so you would meet that requirement? We hope so. Yeah, Lisa?
Sorry, yes, I have been advised, I'm not dealing with the planning aspect, but I had been advised prior to submission of the application that we had planning, and I wasn't aware of any restriction on hours. But I don't mind that if that informative is added to the licence, because we can always go back and check.
Yes, thank you. That's very helpful. Amanda?
Yes, sorry, just one last question. In respect of the hours, I know that you've asked for them, the amended application is until midnight, but while members are considering it, is there any particular days that are busier than others that you would say you have more trade, etc., and you need to trade until midnight? So, for example, if they, you know, didn't want to have Monday to Sunday until midnight, you know, what would a reasonable compromise be, or alternative hours?
So when are you busiest for sales late at night?
I'm going to probably ask Vic or Sam. No, probably Vic actually should be probably the person who answers that question. But can I just also make the point with regard to when we're the busiest? It's also demand led, so it's also when the customer wants their food shopping. And we all know at the moment, if we're doing online shopping, that some of these slots are quite precious, and you will take it when you can get it. At the moment, subject to things sorting themselves out. So I would urge you to go for flexibility, but I will also ask Vic to confirm in relation, is there any sort of pattern at some of the established stores where you're busier on some days than others?
Yes, our busiest days tend to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with emphasis on Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay, that's probably not surprising at all, really. As I've said, we have to always bear in mind when we grant licenses that however an operator at the time seems to be intending to engage in a reasonable business model, the premises can be bought over by someone else, the license still remains, and therefore we have to look ahead as much as we can to what might be done by a future different operator. Has anyone got any final clarification they need? Lisa?
What I would say, Councillor Bell, thank you for making that point. What I would say in response to that is that clearly this application is being considered on the model it's proposing, and we've got very specific conditions with regard to how it will operate. If another operator were to take over the premises and didn't like the conditions, they'd have to come back to you. But more particularly, if they didn't comply with those conditions and they caused a problem, then I am absolutely certain that the residents and the council would be seeking to take steps against the operator. And therefore, I would ask you to, again, judge the application on the applicant before you and how they've been operating their other premises.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for this afternoon. If Maro, you could stop streaming in a few seconds. And if I can ask everyone except those decision makers to leave us. Good luck with your business. Councillor Snell referred to, we rather see businesses thriving, happening. So,
can I just say thank you for listening to us today? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Vic.
Thank you, everyone.